bullet catchers. Your job, if your principal is attacked, is to literally cover them with your body and to catch the bullets. Who's going to catch the bullets here of a second shooter? Nobody. Why? Because President Trump was a lion. He took control. From that moment where he said, "Hang on, guys, stop, I want to put my shoes back on," to the moment where he took control of the Secret Service and said, "Stop," and raised his fist and said, "Fight, fight, fight." That is a lion, and that is the American way. What have we witnessed for the last 4 years? America betrayed. America betrayed by establishment politicians, by the lunatic left, by those who, look, I've said this on my radio show for almost 6 years now. We should delete the letter R behind your name, or the letter D behind Democrats. Why? Because the only thing that matters, the only thing that divides us today is whether you love America or hate it. End of story. This man will die for America. He loves it so much. How do I know this? There's a lot of arguments about when did he really win the election? When was the moment of the ultimate comeback? Some people say the Georgia mugshot. Hey, Fannie Willis, how you doing today? Some say it was the garbage truck. Oh my gosh, I mean, just genius. And then the high-vis vest. Hey, it's slimming, so I'm going to wear it for the whole speech. Some say Butler. Do you know what for me was the moment when I knew President Trump had it, that he's going to win? It happened in McDonald's. It wasn't the visit to McDonald's, but a very special moment. And don't get me wrong, I could not do what President Trump did. Oh, by the way, can we hear it for that McDonald's franchise owner? Now that is a patriot. Good Italian American. But if I were running for the presidency, there's no way I would go into a McDonald's and put on the apron, take off my, custom suit, put on the apron, go over to the fry station. Why? I'd be petrified that if I pick up that massive salt shaker and it's going to open up and dump a pound of salt in the fryer. I can't do that. I'm a counterterrorism guy. Jesse Waters called me the scariest guy on television. I can't risk screwing it up live on camera when I'm trying to make some French fries. But he's fearless. Takes off his Brioni jacket, puts on the apron, goes to the fry station, says, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing, untouched by human hands, so hygienic." I mean, he's a comedian. But the moment, the pièce de résistance of that visit was when he goes to the takeout window. Immigrant Indian family rolls up. Thick subcontinent accent. Husband goes to President Trump as he's handing the baggie of, burgers through the window. Thank you, Mr. President, for doing this for nobodies like us. Do you remember that? President says, "What do you mean? You're an American, you're not a nobody." But then, the next thing that happens, what happened next? You have to turn up the volume. Go back and watch the video. The man's wife from the other side of the car says, "Thank you, Mr. President. You took a bullet for us." And the next moment is for me when it was in the bag. What did the president do? It's not scripted. It's not on cue cards. There's no teleprompter. It's real. It's from the gut. And he says, he pauses because he says, "Wow, yeah, I guess I took a bullet for you." Wow. That's when he won it. And not only that, I was there when he went back to Butler. When he went back to the scene where he was shot in the head by a bullet traveling at 3,000 feet per second, fearless, undaunted. And you know what I witnessed? I witnessed America change that day, because it's not just about President Trump, it's about all patriots. I was in the second row, right behind JD, and there's somebody sitting next to JD Vance with a bull cap on. And I thought, I couldn't tell who it was. I thought, is it that rapper that likes President Trump? Who is it? And as the president's giving his speech at Butler, paying his respects to Chief Corey, who was murdered that day, this chant starts behind me. And there are people as far as the eye can see. I was there 4 hours early. It was to the horizon how many people in red MAGA hats. And this chant makes it up to us. As the president is still speaking, you can hear young men say, Elon, Elon, Elon. And then the guy in the ball cap turns around right in front of me, and it's Elon Musk. Now, why is that important? It's super important because it goes back to courage. Elon Musk was loved by the left. Mr. Tesla cars, Mr. going into space. But he is fearless too. What did he do 20 minutes later? He got up on that stage, jumped around like a high school kid, all excited. And then he said, what kind of president do you want? A guy who can't climb upstairs? Or a guy who gets shot in the head, blood covered on his face, and says, fight, fight, fight? Choose. Choose. So, the brave men are back. America is back. Oh yeah, we're back, baby. I have one request to the good Lord for Christmas. Kamala, Joe, don't do anything for the next 30 days. Because then the adults will be in charge. But here's my message to you. You are here because you love America. You are here because you're patriots. But don't take anything for granted. Just because on January the 20th at 12:01 we're going to walk into the White House and take control doesn't mean that the left has surrendered. The likes of Mark Elias and the others who subverted our democracy 4 years ago, they are plotting right now to denude you of your civil rights, to censor you on social media. Think about it. We have people in prison right now who are there because they prayed inside the Capitol on January the 6th. Prayed. I'm the child of a political prisoner who escaped in the revolution of 1956. I never thought we'd have political prisoners in America. We do, and they must be freed. So, redouble your efforts. Get ready to politically fight, fight, fight. Because we don't have 4 years, we have 2 years until the election. We have to save America, and we have to save America. Why? Because without it, Judeo-Christian civilization is gone. It's that simple. They hate our civilization, and we must save it. Okay. I've been told, and this is my favorite part, that I'm allowed to take questions. Would anyone like to ask me questions before I become a government employee again? Because now I've got a little bit of freedom of speech. In 30 days' time, it's going to be a little harder. Over here, gentleman, red hat.
Thank you. Yeah.
What position am I taking? I'm Deputy Assistant to the President. That's my rank. Senior Director for Counterterrorism in the National Security Council. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. My name is Rick Love. My question is, I often hear, even from conservative platforms, that we are, well, I hear that our, sorry.
Question!
This feedback.
Come on.
Democracy versus constitutional republic.
Yeah.
We're always referred to as a democracy.
Yeah.
Why not constitutional republic? What is the difference for all of us? And,
okay, thank you. A democracy, mob rule. The mob can decide to put the minority in prison. That's why we are a constitutional republic. Next question, over here.
Thank you for taking my question. It's a premise, and I'd like to ask if you agree with it or disagree with it. The attempted assassination of Donald Trump was a conspiracy disguised as incompetence, in my opinion. It was just too incompetent.
Okay, thank you. I have no evidence that it was a conspiracy. The most charitable thing you can say about it, it was failure by design. Failure by design. But we will get to the bottom of it. Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, oh, and Dan Bongino, get off your radio mic and take over the Secret Service. Next.
Thank you. My name is Mike Carey. I'm a precinct committeeman up in Prescott Valley, and I also was a ballot chaser. My main question is, now that we are about ready to take over this country again, are we going to get rid of the CCP? Because they have
You can't get rid of the CCP unless you want war with China, okay? China is the primary peer competitor to the United States. The good news is President Trump understands that, and with the likes of Peter Navarro back in the White House, we will finally take it seriously again. But, you know, we're not going to start war with China, but we will protect our interests. Thank you. Question.
This will be the last question as well.
Hi, I'm Susan. I lost my voice yesterday. But I want to ask you, what is one of your favorite memories of Trump?
Wow, favorite memories of Trump. In the first minute, it's the proudest moment of my career to date. Every 6 months we had to decide what to do with the Iran deal, Obama's, abortion of an Iran deal. And it was time to decide, and the president called me and Steve Bannon into the Oval Office. And he had the whole cabinet there, the whole cabinet. And he called us his heavies. And he said, all right, my heavies, you tell these guys why we have to kill the Iran deal. And we told him. He knew why, but we told him, and then he killed it. That was my proudest moment. God bless you all. Merry Christmas!
People have spoken clearly, and the vice president has conceded defeat to the former president. We truly live in interesting times.
The goal is to create a parallel economy where we can operate and not be under the thumb of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I think that people who accomplish things and support individual liberty should be rewarded. And I think that the people that push mandates, I don't think they belong in America. This is our time. This is not a time to rest. We've got to get in there and fight.
Wow. What an amazing opportunity to follow Seb Gorka and be here with you in Phoenix. I'm going to give you a 5-minute, in 5 minutes, I'm going to give you a 90-minute talk that explains the monetary system and what we ought to do to make money great again in America. 5 points. Number one, our debt path is unsustainable. You already know this, but the Fed knows it too. Fed Chairman Powell says we're on an unsustainable fiscal path. You know what? I wrote a book called Pirate Money. I wrote it a year and a half ago. We had $32 trillion in debt. We have $36 trillion now. $4 trillion added in the last year and a half. That's unsustainable. Number two, you know other nations, the BRICS nations, they want to destroy the American dollar. You know, can we blame them? Even Elon Musk says if we weaponize our currency enough times, other countries will stop using it. Number three, we have inflation. And inflation creates a wealth gap that hurts the poor and will lead to destabilization. Why do we have inflation? Money printing. Listen to the Fed chair.
Simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did.
So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. So it's much more akin, although not exactly the same, but it's much more akin to printing money than it is to borrowing.
You've been printing money.
Well, effectively.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digital.
Flooding the system with money.
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that.
There is no end to our ability to do that.
Are you comfortable with that? Do you want unlimited money printing? You know what it does? It creates inflation. And inflation helps the rich get richer because you can hedge against inflation, but it hurts the middle class. It hurts average Americans. You can look at this chart from the Federal Reserve. It's 100% correlation almost between money printing and the wealthiest 0.1% gaining ground. This is what's hurting America. This is Biden's America right there. Okay, do they understand what they're doing? The top economic advisor to President Joe Biden and Vice President Joe Biden is this guy, Jared Bernstein. He was asked recently in a documentary, what is it about money printing and why do we borrow money? Listen to what he says.
Some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Since they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
No, nothing confusing there. All right, number 4, you've heard of central bank digital currency, right? That is an attempt to control you, and the Bank for International Settlements admits it. Listen to August Karsten from BIS.
The key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability, and also we will have the technology to enforce that.
That's what they intend. Number 5, we can make money great again. And here's how we do it. Article 1, Section 10, go back to the Constitution. The state can make nothing other than gold and silver coin legal tender in a state. We tested it in Texas. Prop 7 said, do you want this? 1.6 million Texans voted yes, 77% voted for it. In Florida, Jimmy Patronis, the chief financial officer, issued a study, and he said, guess what? We can make gold and silver legal tender in Florida also. That's what my team is doing. We have active propositions in 30 states. We have legislation being entered in 24 states. This is written in my book, Pirate Money, the founder's hidden plan for economic justice and defeating the Great Reset. Would you rather have a $20 gold coin or a $20 bill from 100 years ago? Which would you rather have? The gold holds its value. The technology exists to make gold and silver vaulted and transactional to where you could spend it with a debit card. Think of it as Venmo or a Cash App for your gold and silver. We have a lot of groups that have heard me speak and are in support of this. You can see some of them on the screen. And I'm going to be doing a book signing in the exhibition hall with the Patriot Mobile booth at 1:30. I'll be answering questions there and signing books. Free copy of Pirate Money. And we also have a booth in exhibition hall, the Pirate Money booth, if you don't get to the book signing at Patriot Mobile. Look, visit us on Media Row. We've done several shows from here. I've got a TV show, Economic War Room on Blaze TV. I've got a radio show, Pirate Money Radio on American Family Radio. You can see our social media up there. The book is Pirate Money. We're giving copies away. God bless you all, and thank you very much.
really think we're experiencing a complete and total political realignment. This is the greatest comeback in American political history. We need to bring America together again. You who are on the front lines of this effort to take America back, realize how important you are. Until one has been in the deepest valley, one cannot appreciate the majesty of God's highest mountaintop. I think we're about to enter a golden age. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, America is about to America is about to enter a golden age. It is the age of Trump. It is an age of unprecedented peace, prosperity, security, and justice. This is a testimony to the persistence, to the resilience, to the stamina, to the strength, to the stubbornness, and I mean that in a positive sense, of the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln, Donald J. Trump. It is also a testimony to the hard work of the greatest grassroots political operation ever put together in the history of the nation, driven by men like Charlie Kirk and Scott Pressler, and yes, my friend Cliff Maloney. Donald Trump has staged the greatest single political comeback in American history. Yes, it is true that the 1972 victory of Richard Nixon was greater and more sweeping, but Nixon was not just facing a political campaign. Donald Trump faced down a tsunami of lawfare, the illegitimate use of our criminal justice system to damage his candidacy, an endless torrent of lies about January 6th, but he had the grit and the gumption and the courage and the fight to bring his case to the American people, and they didn't buy it. They bought a vision for a stronger, more prosperous America. Donald Trump and his associates were subjected to the greatest single dirty trick in American political history. That is nothing less than an abuse of power in which the full authority of the United States government and the extraordinary capability of our intelligence agencies were used to utilize what they knew was fraudulent evidence, the Steele dossier, and the false claim that the Democrat National Committee had been the subject of an online hack by Russian assets, and that information had been lagged to the Trump campaign. This is a lie the American people saw through. I was a target in this simply because I am a 45-year friend and supporter of the president. But now when we examine these things, because that is an act of treason, we're accused of being for revenge or retribution. No, my friends, what we seek is a rebalance of the scales of justice so this country can return to one standard of justice, not the two-tiered justice system. Only yesterday, I read a shocking House report that proved that Congressman Adam Schiff and Congressman Eric Swallowswell leaked classified documents during the Russian collusion hoax in violation of the law, and I have sent a full copy of this congressional report to Pam Bondi. If it's Schiff, flush it. This election was not just a personal triumph for Donald Trump and the America First agenda. It was the beginning of a mass, great political realignment. It is a realignment where Republican and Democrat, in all honesty, no longer matter. That is not the divide in Washington. The divide is between an entrenched political establishment that until 2016 dominated both parties and outsiders like Donald J. Trump, J.D. Vance, and Robert F. Kennedy. This is a realignment in which those who favor endless war where our inherent national interests are not clear, who would censor our free speech not only on the internet but in all mediums, and who think it is fine for Big Pharma and Big Food to do anything they want as long as profits are fat. While at the same time, common sense Democrats and independents, Democrats like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, who is now a Republican, and Governor Rod Blagojevich, and those who favor common sense, who want peace, who support free speech, and think it is important to find out why Big Pharma and Big Food are poisoning our children. That is the great fight, and that is the source of the great realignment. This is a realignment like we had in 1932, which manifested itself in 1936. Until 1932, a majority of African Americans voted Republican because of the role of the Republican Party and Lincoln in the Great Emancipation. But by 1936, most African Americans were voting for Democrats, and that put the Democrats into a new realignment, which kept them in the White House from 1932 until 1952. Then I would say this is also very much like the realignment of 1968. That is a realignment in which white Southern Democrats and blue-collar ethnic Catholics in the Northeast and the Midwest elected Richard Nixon, although in a three-way race, but eventually a realignment that manifests itself in the election of one of our greatest presidents, Ronald Reagan. Now, liberals and academics have sought to denigrate the presidency of Ronald Reagan, but he was among our greatest presidents. He returned us to the policy of peace through strength. That is the same policy as one of our greatest presidents, Dwight Eisenhower. This is the policy adopted by Donald Trump. We had peace in the world. We had no new foreign wars because our foreign adversaries understood in Donald Trump they had a tough man who did what he said and said what he would do, and he believed in strength and unpredictability as a deterrent. And then, post-Reagan, unfortunately, our party was hijacked by a Wall Street country club wing. They gave us endless foreign war. They gave us massive debt and spending, and they gave us the invasive Patriot Act. We then nominated a succession of weak candidates. I speak specifically of Mitt Romney, a man who begged Donald Trump for his endorsement to get into the U.S. Senate. And then, just as his father, George Romney, knifed Barry Goldwater in the back, he knifed our president in the back by voting for his impeachment. So to Mitt Romney, I say, Judas be gone. In 2017, Donald Trump came to the White House from the world of business. And he quite reasonably thought, well, there are two groups, the Republicans who are for me and the Democrats who are against me. He learned in his first term that there was a permanent political establishment and that many Republicans sought his removal and destruction from the moment he came down that golden escalator. And that is why today he is a much wiser president. It is why he will be an even greater president in his second term than he was in his first term. It is why he has given us appointees like Kash Patel to the FBI. It is why he has given us nominees like Pam Bondi to be Attorney General of the United States. It is why he has given us, yes, nominations of four-term Democrat Congresswoman, Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, and true American patriot Tulsi Gabbard. It is why he has given us nominees like a man I've watched being kneecapped when he tried to run for president as a Democrat, where they used the same tactics against him that they used against Bernie Sanders, and then hamstrung by lawfare when he sought to seek the presidency as an independent, and who then came to realize that it was best to put his personal ambitions aside, and because he's opposed to war, and because he believes in free speech, and because he wants to make America healthy again and deal with the issue of child chronic disease, has joined into this great alignment. This is a new team of reform. But let's be clear, because we saw it this past week regarding the continuing resolution in the Congress pertaining to our financing. Our problem today are not the socialist, screwball, Marxist Democrats. Our problem today are the weak-kneed, gutless, feckless, lily-livered, white wine swilling, brie cheese eating establishment Republicans who have neither the guts nor the balls to fight for America. My friends, one man can make a difference. One person can make a difference. I point out to you today with us a man who had never been in politics. He was an entrepreneur, a businessman, concerned about creating jobs. But then he put a sign on the roof of his factory in New Amsterdam, New York, that said, "Vote for Trump." It was the largest sign in the United States to say so. And the Democrat mayor of Amsterdam, New York, sought to put him in jail for exercising his First Amendment right. He is now awake and in the fight. I refer to Anthony Constantino, who is now seeking the seat that will be vacated by Elise Stefanik, another one of President Donald Trump's greatest appointments. Anthony, stand up. My friends, the danger is not over. The deep state will not just ride off into the night. So I ask you in my final remarks here to do one thing, one important thing. Pray. Pray for the safety of our president. Pray for the safety of his family. Pray for the safety of those he has called on to serve him. I've experienced miracles in my own life. I have experienced multiple miracles after I was given an unconditional presidential pardon. My wife was diagnosed with an aggressive stage 4 cancer, and I prayed to the Lord that she be saved. And I'm happy to tell you today, thanks to the healing power of Jesus Christ, she is 3.5 years cancer-free. It was Richard Nixon who said, "A man is not finished when he is defeated. He is only finished when he quits." My friends, he also said, The greatness comes not when things go always good for you, but when you suffer some defeats, some setbacks, you take some knocks. Because only until one has been in the deepest valley can one appreciate the highest mountaintop. In the fight for freedom, in the fight for our Constitution, in the fight for our way of life, my friends, neither Donald Trump nor yours truly, Roger Stone, will ever quit in that fight. God bless you.
Supporting Kamala Harris?
No.
Not too sure about that.
Why? Okay, so
right now because she's not Trump.
Can you tell me her greatest accomplishment?
No, I can't.
Can you tell me a single accomplishment?
I cannot. I want to leave.
What is Kamala Harris's greatest accomplishment?
See, that question. You can't. Okay.
Name an accomplishment of hers.
An accomplishment of her? She got in. When she was the Hey.
What is her greatest accomplishment?
Being an idol for.
Oh, I wish I had this on the top of my head, but I don't.
Well, as vice president, I'm not sure. I guess I have nothing. I'm stumped.
We cannot heal our country until we defeat the Democrat Party this November.
My number one mission is make Donald Trump go back into the White House in November.
Why should I vote for Trump?
Can you kind of give me your point of view of why I should vote for Trump?
I am thinking of voting for Harris, but I am open to be proven otherwise.
Could you please explain why under a Trump presidency it would be more beneficial to me than a Harris presidency?
I want to try to win you over as a liberal for Donald Trump.
Why should I vote for Trump?
There's no guesswork in this election. We know the type of president that Trump was and that he will be.
There are three things I want you to think about when voting for Trump. Home ownership, border, war. Three objective things.
People remember the Trump years better because they were better. Kamala Harris will destroy this country, bring us closer to World War III, allow 30 million illegal people into the country, and bring us to a Great Depression. Donald Trump will restore the American dream for your generation.
When I decide, just in case, can I have a hat?
You can have a hat.
So which way are you leaning?
Can I get a hat?
That's a good answer.
I think you've convinced me, so thank you for that.
God bless you.
So, yeah, that would end up leaning me towards the Republican Party despite myself being a liberal.
How are you leaning this election?
Well, after what you said, Trump.
Let's go! I'm talking to voters of this country that will determine the future of Western civilization. That's what I'm doing here today.
We gotta win. We're gonna make America great.
It truly is an honor to be here and in this movement with you.
America Fest seems like the place to be.
This is the most important movement of our lifetime in politics.
With all of the amazing, brilliant people that are supporting him, I feel like it could not only be make America great again, but make America greater than it's ever been.
I want to live in a country where I can say I love this country and I'm not making a political stand. I'm doing this because I love this country.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Aren't these just the greatest events? So this is the 1-year anniversary to the exact day that I came to my first political event. Right here at AmFest, sat right over there, and I can't believe I went from being in the audience for my first political event to now being on the main stage. It's kind of wild. And it was a lot of fun. Did you guys have fun the last year? Yeah? This is definitely a celebration time for us. But look, I grew up driving race cars. I'm now able to tell my dad, you were right all along. Steak, potatoes, Fox News. And so as an athlete, generally my interest was in racing and sports and performance and my body and health. So over the last couple of years, I would say, especially last year, my real interest in all of the things going on and having some kind of influence from the political standpoint had to do with health, had to do with, look, I'm a very fortunate human being. I have a lot of luxuries in life, but when I think about the food that gets put on the table, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, I think I can't run from that anymore. I can't, like I think my food, right? Plant a garden. Well, you can't run from the chemtrails in the skies that land on your food. How about the fact that they're putting vaccines in food like lettuce and tomatoes? What happens when they stop telling you they're doing that? So these are the things that I got very passionate about. And then here comes December of last year, and we just heard someone mention how important one person can be in making a difference. Last night, I saw a sweet lady named Kelsey, who was the one that sent me a direct message on behalf of Turning Point to come to the event, which was paired then with my sister saying, hey, have you guys seen all those, have you seen the great speakers that are in town to speak at AmFest? And I was like, hang on a second. I got a DM from them. So I reached out and saw her last night, and I said, and she was like blown away. She was like, one person, it's amazing what can make a difference. And you'll hear how wild this story is and where I ended up in the end of this whole last year, which is such a crazy experience that was so memorable. But it started with just one person reaching out and making a difference. And can we just stop for a second and give a hand to Charlie Kirk and the amazing people that he has to organize it, as well as Charlie himself. Such a driven human being. Hard to believe he's 31 years old. That just, is so impressive. I'm going to say it makes me feel bad, but it's so impressive what he's been able to build. So anyway, thank you so much, Charlie, and thank you to all these people, and thank you to Kelsey for reaching out to me, because it brought me here last year. So exactly 1 year ago today, I sat in this audience at my first political event and stayed. One of the most impactful speakers, as I'm sure that you guys would probably agree, was Tucker. Yeah. Were you guys here last night? Yeah. Isn't that so fun when he gets so riled up? He's like, man, I'm just getting started up here. And I think he's telling the truth. I really think that he gets brought up by all the energy, which is something that I'm going to mention about in my whole story, and hopefully it will inspire your own. But Tucker talked about truth, and that truth is your superpower. And I really, really believe that. But I believe even more than that. I think truth carries a frequency. I think that when you speak your truth, people can feel that. We're like living in this time where we don't know what's true and what's not. Do we believe the propaganda movies? Do we believe the news? I mean, thank God for Donald Trump for telling us that there was fake news out there. Do we believe the drug companies? Do we believe in our doctors? Do we believe in any of this stuff? And the only way that you can ever really get to the point of knowing what's true is that we as human beings start turning inward and start feeling what is being said and how that lands in the body. Like, let me give you an example. Like, I always have silly examples for how I learn these things. So music, you hear a song and it just hits, right? And it hits for decades. It's like, you can feel it. Now, I feel like there's a frequency in the truth of the song being sung and the person that wrote it and the emotion that they felt, and it's landing with you. So I think that also happens with vulnerability. I think vulnerability also lands in that frequency range of truth. And, you know, I think the best definition of vulnerability is where someone is not sure they're ready to say it, but they do, right? Because you know you need to. So I think that for me, all this political stuff was like, oh, how's this going to go? It's true. Say it. So my sister and I came to the event. I posted some pictures after the event. And I said something along the lines of, you know, America Fest, Am Fest, I love this country, seems like the place to be. And the backlash was just wildly shocking to me. Don't you guys find it amazing that you can say, I love this country, and it means you're Republican? That you can wear an American flag, and it means you're Republican? Why aren't these things American? And the work isn't done until that's true. Look, I've lived in other countries, and America is amazing. I lived in England for 3 years while I was racing and came back and immediately got an American flag tattoo on my back. Merged with a checkered flag. It's not really very clear. It's a little blurry, but and as I get older, it gets worse. But the memory's there, guys, and I'm sure the pictures are on the internet too. But that's how much I love this country. So when I made this post and had people freak out about it, honestly, it just pissed me off, and it lit a real fire, which then led to one of the funnest years I've ever had. So, Tucker, I said I loved his speech. He spoke about truth. Well, I met him backstage finally, and that quickly led to me going and doing his podcast in Florida a few weeks later. That then led to me coming back and Charlie reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love for you to come on the show. So then I went on Charlie's show, and then I made another post, and I was like, I guess I'm into politics. So another thing that I think is really true about what happens when you tell the truth is it accelerates your path. Like, what's meant for you also gives you energy. So the path lights up for you, and then it also, because you're in alignment, it gives you energy. You know, think about all the things that you do that you love doing. You lose track of time. You lose track of hunger. Maybe I don't, but some people probably do. But you lose track of everything because you get self-sustaining energy. So now I'm going to tell you about where that proved to be so true. So one of the other people that I met as a result of AmFest was Tulsi Gabbard. She spoke, and I reached out, right? Isn't she just a badass? Proud to call her a friend now. I reached out afterwards, and I just sent her a DM, and I just said, wow, you're so impressive. I'm so cheering for you. And she said right away back she was a fan. So we became friends. I interviewed her, and then fast forward a few more months, she invited me to moderate for her and Bobby in Las Vegas at a Reclaim America tour stop. I've never moderated anything. So I was like, okay. Because look, there is a very, very fine line that's almost indistinguishable. Maybe there isn't one between fear and excitement. Like, take a roller coaster, for instance. Is that exciting or is that scary? Right? So I was a little scared to do it, but I also was excited to do it. So I never let fear win in those moments. And it was actually after my racing career that I realized that it's in those really challenging moments where I have to like push myself that I actually come alive. Because so many people, if they're unhappy, it's not because they're bored. It's not because they truly are unhappy. They're just not doing enough of what lights them up. And sometimes it's challenge, and I've realized that challenge is mine. So I went and moderated for Bobby and Tulsi, and it was such a great experience. And how I mentioned this path, like it goes very quickly. A couple weeks later, I was then asked to moderate for J.D. Vance, all by myself in North Carolina. And again, I was like, wow, I've moderated one time now. But I said yes. He's an awesome human being. We have an insanely good VP, guys. Usha's wife was there. This administration's lit. And so I did that. And I also did some Women for Trump events with Laura Trump. I also then was asked by Tulsi, fast forward all the way to the end, and she said, would you be willing to tour for a few days all the way up until the election with me? And I was like, yeah. She's like, we're going to do some Trump Force One and some Trump rallies. I was like, yeah. So flew to it, 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 Sure. So they brought ginger ale out. So I guess he's stayed fueled on ginger ale. But he has this insane energy and insane, like, humor. And look, it's truly clear that he is doing what is meant for him. And it makes me so excited for these next 4 years. And look, I think if we play it right, this could be 12. Probably with the help of Charlie Kirk, because he seems to really have his hands. I think he's been in Florida until about this event started. So I'm excited about Bobby and Tulsi and disclosures and food improving, medical improving. There's just so many things that I think are going to improve, and I think we are truly entering the golden age. And I'm what a time to be alive. Like, I actually said that when COVID happened. I was like, what a time to be alive. The amount of stuff that we've seen and the amount of exposure that we've seen has landed where we are. And I think we've heard a few talk about it. But if you would have been elected that second time right away, we wouldn't be having the scenario that we have now, where we're going to get so many things done. Very exciting. I know I'm going on and I need to wrap up. One thing I want to say is how important I believe that it is that there's a push for this, but family. I'm where I am today because my mom, my dad, my sister, and the nuclear family is something that's been, they've tried to tear apart over the last good few years, and we're not having it, right? We're not having it, where rights are taken away from parents, from children that should not be making those decisions. And look, the more that we can get back to, I mean, if we could get to extended family community living, great, because this is what culture used to do. But now it's these separated families at a distance, and so the least we can do is keep the nuclear family together. So I just want to say how grateful I am for my family, and how grateful I am that we have an administration that believes that family and parents and their children are important. One of the things that a lot of people have said to me since, well, actually during the campaigning as well as after, is they said, thank you. They whisper, they go, thank you so much for what you've been doing. Which I know what they mean. And my reply is, of course, thank you, but they tell me how brave I've been. And I'm not going to lie. I don't feel brave. I don't feel like anything I've said or done has made me brave. All I did was believe in something enough. And that's all you have to do, is believe in something enough. So don't forget that your truth leads to your calling, and your calling leads to the energy that gets brought up within you so that you can go ahead and make an impact. And then that impact that you make becomes your legacy. Thank you.
The lengths to which people will go to try to win, to try to bring you down. What's your track record? And that's what it should come down to in this election, because Kamala Harris's track record, we know what it is over the last 3.5 years. All of a sudden you say you care? It's an American concern, and she continues to try to divide. I think so often the Democrats believe that black men and women, especially younger, are too stupid or lazy to do their homework. I couldn't do it. I was physically ill thinking about not practicing what I preach.
Right.
Hello. No, I can't dance. I mean, I'm half black, but I have no rhythm. I'm sorry. I'm not going to start dancing, and then it'll go on the, okay? That was funny, right? It's okay. How is everybody? Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. I am so excited and number one, honored to be here. So, we'll talk later. Stop. That's twice from you. Okay, the timer's going. And no, I had 20, not 17 minutes. I'm going to take it. Okay, guys, such an honor, and I'm starting with a question for you. Not one that you necessarily have to answer out loud unless you want to, but what is your biggest fear? Yes, that too. Communism counts. Personally, I want you to think about it for the next 20 minutes and hopefully forever, because fear affects everything in our lives, and that's what I've learned. I will be honest with you, I've lived in fear my entire life. And I'm not afraid to talk about it now because pushing through some of those fears has actually changed my life, and I feel like if I don't share those fears, what a waste, right? I'm going to focus just on the last 3 years, though, because that's when it's been, I think, the most evident. Starting in September of 2021, I was in my 15th year at ESPN, which was my dream job since I was 11 years old, said I wanted to be a sportscaster, and the dream was ESPN, and I did it. And I loved, honestly, I loved every moment. The problem is, in September of 21, if you recall where we were as a country at that time, that little COVID thing. And ESPN is owned by who? Disney. Disney owns ESPN and ABC. And Disney put out a mandate that by September 30th, 2021, if you were not vaccinated, you would be fired. You would not have a job. Unfortunately, Disney was not alone, and many companies chose to do that to their employees, even when you look at the U.S. military. A lot of things that we got to fix, and I know we're going to. But at that moment, I knew that I had a decision to make. I was the mother, still am the mother of 3 college-age kids, 100% financially responsible for all my kids, their father as well, so the pressure was real. So when we talk about fear, to stand up for something you didn't believe in, being forced to take a vaccine, that fear is real. I believe that. Yes, we have choices, but the fear is real. I had been told by friends, listen, get a medical exemption, you can do that. And I said, well, but there isn't a medical issue, I just think it's wrong. I don't want to have to lie. Well, get a religious exemption. Okay, fine, I have a very strong faith, but it has nothing to do with my religion. This is just wrong to force me to do something to my body that I am not comfortable with, period. That's all there is to it. I like the my body, my choice when it's convenient for them, correct? Yeah, it's cute. So, unfortunately, that is a decision that I had to make, and thought about it and prayed about it and knew I couldn't lie and knew that I needed a job that I needed and a job that I loved. So I made an appointment at the grocery store to go get a shot because I needed to keep my job. And I prayed about it the entire time. When I sat in that parking lot before I went in, disgusted with myself because I felt like I was caving in. But I felt like I had no choice. They gave us no choice. I walked in that grocery store, and I'll never forget this moment. I sat down in the chair in the little pharmacy, and my eyes were red, and the nurse, a wonderful woman, looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm being forced to do something to my body that I think is wrong. And I have no choice." And I was crying, and she looked at me, and she grabbed my hand, this complete stranger, and said, "This is so wrong, and I am so sorry." And at that moment, she put the needle in my arm. I'd like to think I just told myself there was water in it. This was a fake one. And I felt, I changed forever at that moment when I realized that I was forced to give up control of my body for something that was an experiment. But I felt at that moment I had no choice. I've beaten myself up for years because I felt like I caved. In that moment, I did what I felt was right for my family, period. But I changed. Previously planned that day, I had a podcast with former Bears and Broncos quarterback Jay Cutler. You may have heard of him. I did a lot of his terrible highlights on SportsCenter through the years. Sorry, Jay. Did a podcast with him previously planned, and literally went from the parking lot at the grocery store to my laptop to do the Zoom. Didn't even think about the Band-Aid on my arm from getting the shot. And he asked me during the show, "What's that?" First he said, "Hey, can we talk about the vaccine? I know you've been outspoken." I said, "Absolutely, let's go, it's fine." And I answered the question when he said, "What is that, and did you take it?" And I was, again, so disgusted with myself, and I said, "Yes, I did." And I said, "Listen, I just think it's sick and scary for any employer to force their employees to do something to their body." I said, "But I work for a global company, Disney, and I understand it because that's what they're all doing, but I think it's sick and scary." And we moved on. When the podcast posted about 2 weeks later, Needless to say, it blew up. It blew up on social media for other things I said that were apparently controversial as well. But this was the main focus of my employers, is that I whacked the company, was the word. I complied. And there's actually a law in Connecticut that we found out later, ESPN based in Connecticut, that if you are complying with the rules of your company, you can say what you want, but you must comply. They didn't know that. We did, thanks to the attorney I ended up hiring later. But that's a few minutes ahead. Hold that thought. I learned a lot through this process. The bosses called, my agent called first and said, there's a problem. This is not going over well with Disney. And they said, wait for the call from your boss. And when he called, he said, listen, love ya, but you ticked off the wrong people with your comments about the vaccine. I said, I complied. He said, I don't care. And told me that they were going to suspend me, take me off the air for indefinite amount of time. It ended up being about 13 days, paid suspension, as well as make me do a public apology. And I fought it. And they said, if you don't, I said, what am I apologizing for? I followed their rules. But I was afraid because they said if I didn't apologize, I'd be out of a job. The fear continued to build. So what did I do? I gave in with this because I was afraid. I gave the public apology because I was afraid they'd take my job because they said that they would. While I was suspended, it was the definition of canceled by everybody in the media, even people that were friends, use that in air quotes now. And it was definitely the darkest time of my life. And then I got really sick with COVID, of course, to the point where for 8 days I was alone in my home. My kids had gone to their father's house. I was alone and couldn't be around anybody. And my heart was jumping out of my chest for 24 straight hours. My heart would not stop going crazy. And I thought, this is because of the vax. And so I got up and I went to take a shower after 3 days and to take myself to the hospital. And when I stood up, I fell over. I couldn't move. I had nothing, no energy, no food, nothing. And I realized that if I fell over again and hit my head, that no one would find me. So I'm canceled. I'm sick. Actually, they told me I wouldn't get sick if I did that, and I had nothing. Eventually, I was allowed to go back to work. I was told that my peers were upset with me, that they didn't want to be teammates with me, they didn't want to work with me. Some said it publicly. And so my bosses instilled more fear. And I listened to it. And I thought, wait, I've been the best teammate. I've done everything you've asked for 15 years at the highest level while being a mother, while doing all these things. And you're threatening me and saying my teammates don't want to work with me? It just kept building. I didn't know what to do. When I finally went back to work, my parents had come up. My dad has 2 kinds of cancer. My dad wasn't supposed to be around me. I'd been sick. The vax, all of those things. My parents came up and lifted their 50-year-old little girl off the ground and said, you're going to do this. And when I was walking back into work that day for the first time after my suspension, again, fear, scared to death. My dad, the former Army football player and football coach, said, huddle up. It's always about sports in my house. It was me, my mom, and my best friend is my makeup artist who really had a lot to fix on my face that day. And we huddled up. And I'm Catholic, and he recited the prayer, St. Michael the Archangel, protect us. This prayer I'll never forget. Part of it says, protect us from the wickedness and snares of the devil. And it hit me so hard that day, and every single day from that moment in October of 2021 when I was allowed back to work to the day I left ESPN in August of 2023, I would drive to work, I'd call my mom and dad, we'd say that prayer. And at least for the next 2 hours in that building, doing the job that I loved, I felt like I had a protective bubble around myself. It felt so good because I knew it was bigger than me. God was going to protect me during that moment. So the fear began to dissipate slowly but surely. The problem is during that time, I witnessed my peers saying whatever they wanted about Roe versus Wade being overturned and how devastated they were. And they talked about the women's right to abortion on an NBA show. And then we talked about the alleged Don't Say Gay bill in the state of Florida on football shows. And we gave moments of silence during women's college basketball tournaments for what was allegedly happening in Florida, which we all know those words were never even in any of those laws in the state of Florida. But they didn't want to do their homework, didn't want to be journalists and do their homework. Instead, they spread fear. And I saw that my friends, my peers at ESPN, on airwaves were talking about stuff that had nothing to do with sports. I was on an off day, giving my opinion on a vaccine that I took that you made me take. I complied. And I'm suspended and punished. You're taking all my assignments away. I was the host of the Rose Parade in Pasadena, the New York City Marathon, things I'd worked my life for. I was ready to move on, just don't take my assignments and allow my peers to do exactly what you told me I couldn't do. I needed consistency. That's all we need. I have 3 kids. Consistency. They might not like your rules, but be consistent. And my bosses were inconsistent. It's been years of this, and I called an attorney. My dear friend Chris Harrison, the former host of The Bachelor, he is the one that saw what was happening. He was canceled. He was brought down. Our attorney, Brian Friedman, saved Chris. Brian Friedman also, Megyn Kelly's attorney, who came to Megyn Kelly's rescue when NBC did what they did to her. And look at Megyn Kelly right now, the most powerful journalist on the planet with Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk. Look at what she's done. And he said, young lady, you've been wronged. And this is going to be big. This is going to be scary. More fear, more fear. Take it on Disney. This is truly David versus Goliath, and it was. They could bleed me dry in 5 minutes financially, and they tried. But I knew that I was done being told to be fearful, done being told to not be me when everybody else was allowed to be. My daughter's high school in Connecticut, the little girl, she was a girl one day, a boy the next, and the cat on Thursday. We're okay with that. But I can't be a conservative. I can't have opinions. While following your rules, I'm done. So my attorney, we got the lawsuit ready to sue the company that I loved, my childhood dream. The night before the lawsuit dropped, I went to each one of my kids separately. One was a freshman in college, the other 2 were in high school, and I said, guys, this is what's happening tomorrow. I want to apologize because I know that this affects you. Through the years, every time I said something that made some people mad, they'd go after my kids. And they threatened to rape my daughters on social media. They wished me death. The level that people go to just because you have a different opinion is disgusting, and I will never delete those comments because we need to remember what people are about at times and call them out. But I want to apologize to my children for what was about to come. And each one, I lost, no matter what was said about me, about my company and my peers and the media and strangers. I was already going to win because this whole time my kids have been watching me shrink and get smaller and live in fear to try to protect them. That was the reason. But what was I teaching them to do? The opposite of what I was preaching them. So I knew at that moment I was going to be okay no matter the result. 3 weeks later, I was back to work, right? I'm doing my thing. I'm pretending like I'm not suing the company while I'm on their TV screen. And I was at the PGA Championship in Southern Hills, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Southern Hills, a beautiful club. And I had just gotten off the air with my favorite co-host, Matt Berry. And we were walking the course, and I was way, way, way in the left fairway. I've been to many golf courses, covered 7 Masters. I know how to be on a golf course. And the craziest thing in the world happened. Long story short, I turned from 280 yards away. We're following the best groups. Scotty Scheffler, pretty good golfer, Colin Morikawa, and John Rahm, the best golfers in the world. We wanted to follow that group. And as I stood behind a tree from 280 yards away, I've never felt or heard a sound like this. 150 miles an hour, the ball, direct shot onto my mouth. It hit my mouth so hard that it ricocheted back into the middle of the fairway. I was next to a tree. They thought it hit a tree, and then until they looked at me, and I had blood pouring out of my hands. I don't know how I didn't pass out. Most importantly, I don't know how I survived other than God, because hitting a ball in the face with a ball at 150 miles an hour, if it had been an inch higher, if I'd been looking at my phone for a second, then it takes out my orbital bone, my eye, my temple, I'm dead. So I only lost 8 teeth and had 3 root canals. But my smile's back. If anyone gets hit in the face, I have a great dentist in Canton, Connecticut, okay? I got you. I'm sitting there, and I was alive, I was okay, and they were trying to avoid the cameras seeing my bloody hands. And so I was hiding behind a tree, and when I was kneeling down there's a picture online I'll never forget over my mouth, the blood dripping out. The voices that I heard, the darkest voices I'd ever heard in my life. Literally, like the angel devil on this shoulder, I heard someone saying, that's what you get. That's what you get. Because think about it. My mouth is what got me in trouble. Speaking up and being true to myself. Of all places for a ball to hit me from 280 yards away at 150 miles an hour in my mouth, I said, I'm done. And I said, God, I'm so sorry. I'll stop. I'll be quiet. I'll drop the lawsuit. I'll do whatever it takes. I hear you. This is why they say be quiet. Like, I got it. And then I was on the stretcher and I went to the hospital. And then the other voice was like, okay, no, because you're still standing. You're alive right now for a reason. It took a while. But I believe in good and evil. If you believe in good, you got to believe in evil. And I believe that there was something evil and dark trying to penetrate me. When I was on the ground, I knew my peers, the liberal media, our friends, all the people that had crushed me and canceled me before were like, see, that's what she gets. And it actually happened. I was sent the articles. It actually happened. But that moment changed me, and I knew that I was absolutely here for a reason. Fast forward, I went back to work 20 days later, like an idiot, because I was afraid that my bosses and my peers would think I was milking it, even though I couldn't talk, and every time I did talk with my fake teeth, I was spitting on everybody. So fortunately, you can't feel that through the TV screen, but it was a disaster. I still did my hat. I wanted to prove I'm tough. I wanted to have nobody ask questions. And I just kept going, despite the advice from my attorney and everybody else to just stop, and it's okay. On August 14, 2023, my case against Disney settled. Out of court. I take that as a victory. The reason, this was a free speech. This was a First Amendment lawsuit. That's what this was. This wasn't about treating me wrong because I was a good employee for all those years. This is about being inconsistent and telling people, we love you, we respect you, we've got you. Until what? Until you don't fit into their box. And I knew somehow or another I'd be okay. I'd get another job, I'd find another way to get a paycheck. But what about the hundreds of people who would come up to me, even in the office, people I worked with who were just afraid to speak and say thank you? How about at the airports? It happens to me all the time now. And there have been questions when the transition after almost 30 years in corporate media, the job that I loved went away. But every time I realized that's why I did it. What a waste if I have this platform that I'm too afraid to use. I told you, I've been fearful my entire life. And finally, when you keep getting knocked down, but then are able to wake up the next morning and do it, you realize this is so much bigger than me. What a waste if I don't use this platform. And that was a scary day on August 14, 2023, but it was the biggest blessing. 7 months later, I started my new show, Sage Steele Show, and I've had such a blast just having conversations with people. From Dana White, who's my dear friend, even if I call him the wrong name, my Dana White, to RFK Jr., to Nicole Shanahan, to Sharon Osbourne, to Aries Spears, to Mayim Bialik, who's super liberal, and she took a chance and came to talk to me anyway. We have conversations, God. Isn't that what's been missing in our country for all these years? Conversations. I was afraid, though, too, to be too political, not give my opinions, because what happens then, right? Well, then you're going to be tagged as a right-wing nut job. And you know what? I noticed that every single time I gave my opinion, and those on my show did, controversial topics, Michael Rappaport, who was very far left and ended up voting for Donald Trump because of what the Biden administration did not do with Israel. Like, when you look at the facts, it's easy. And I realized that every time someone spoke up and gave our true opinion, the numbers, your views, your likes go up because we're all desperate just for truth and just for people to be their authentic selves. Through my show, I got to interview Laura Trump. What a blessing. What a powerhouse of a woman. I mean, I'm obsessed with her, and I don't think that people truly understand the difference that she and Michael Whatley, as the RNC co-chairs, made in this country. They saved this country. They knew what was happening in the background. They knew what was happening in Georgia and in Pennsylvania and in Arizona and all these places that were cheating and trying to do it again just like 2020. And they knew, and they got out ahead of it, and they crushed it. And it was an honor to stand next to her with our sexy pink jackets on the campaign trail, etc. It was incredible. And then they called and said, do you want to come on the tour with us and put on those jackets and support and be a surrogate? And I said, hell yes, I do. After all the years of fear, I'm like, this is me. I have to, again, I'm telling my kids and other college kids that I speak to be true to themselves, that I'm too afraid. So when I posted that first picture with Danica and the pink jacket and with Laura, it was scary. And I got a lot of hate, a lot of blocking people on Instagram. But what happened? There was so much more positivity. And every time you push through that fear, what happens? It's a little easier the next time. That led to being asked to moderate a couple of panels, a couple of town halls with J.D. Vance in Reading, Pennsylvania, and then with Donald Trump in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I want to tell you that when I was on that stage with Donald Trump, I was like, what has happened to my life? Like, this is the most amazing thing and the biggest blessing. And I've talked to presidents before. I've done so many amazing interviews and on big stages, and that obviously was the biggest thing. And I will admit, one more fear. I'm on that stage in front of 5,000 strong in Lancaster and Pennsylvania. Thank you. You did an incredible job. Thank you, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Scotty Presler. Thank you to everybody who had that courage to go in that state and do what they did. And when I sat on that stage with Donald Trump, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the most vulnerable I've ever been in my life. This is a couple months after Butler, Pennsylvania. I look down, I see Secret Service everywhere, and I go, wow, this is scary. And then I look to my right, 2 feet to my right, and who's sitting there? You talk about fear. They tried to kill him more than once. They've tried to imprison him. And every single time, what did he do? He stood taller. He stood stronger. He pushed through. He's amazing, but he's human. You don't think there was some fear in there after what happened in Butler? After what happened on his own property in Florida? If that man's going to push through his fears, who am I to continue to be fearful to talk about my beliefs with our country and what we need? He's taking all the risks. He didn't have to do any of this. It would have been smarter, safer, cheaper for him to just stay on one of his many properties and on his golf courses and do his thing and be there for Kai, his beautiful young granddaughter. But he has chosen to do this because he cares, because he has pushed through his fears. You talk about being vilified and hated. It's a beautiful thing to watch. If Donald Trump can push through his fear and do this for us, what fears are we going to push through? So think about those fears that you have. It's okay. We all have them. I was scared to come up here, and I've done this 10,000 times. I'm still fearful, right? You're not going to be liked. It's not going to be enough. It's bigger than us. This man did this for us. I'm going to end on this because this is a prayer that saved me my entire life, that my dad had me and my brothers memorize as kids. My dad went to West Point, 23-year Army career, retired Army colonel. We had to salute doing room inspections every Saturday. No more of that. And this is what he taught us. Part of the cadet prayer. Help me to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half-truth when the whole can be won. The harder right versus the easier wrong. It is easier to stay silent. It's easier to take the shot and comply. It's easier to just not have the conversation at the Thanksgiving dinner table. It's easier. What's the right thing? You can do it with kindness. You can be kind about it. Know your facts. But it's the right thing. And not just for ourselves, but for our children and for our neighbors and for people that you'll never meet. You have no idea. And I know just by being here, many of you had to push through a lot of fear and had to have tough conversations with family members and friends. And you probably lost friendships like I have and bosses. But you're here. And the beauty of pushing through is that then you realize you're also not alone. Danica mentioned it before. It's a family. This is an incredible family. What a blessing to be part of it. And I'm so proud of all of us for pushing through our fears and choosing the harder right instead of the easier wrong. And never again can we be content with a half-truth, because now we know that the whole truth can be won, because on November 5th, it was. God bless you.
Somewhere a perversion has taken place. Our natural unalienable rights are now considered to be a dispensation of government, and freedom has never been so fragile, so close to slipping from our grasp as it is at this moment.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It has to be fought for and defended by each generation.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
In this most critical time in our nation's history, now...
Check. Check.
And everybody that's in here should be on our service.
All right.
Because we support causes like Turning Point USA. Anyway, before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you to Charlie Kirk. He is one of the greatest guys I've ever met. He's a friend. And more importantly, or not necessarily more
Hey folks, welcome back to the America Fest conference here in Phoenix, Arizona. Mike Church, KingDude here, live with you a little bit after 2 p.m. here in the Mountain Time Zone, and having a great day here today. Sage Steele just gave a great talk, and was very. I think she was very emotional about talking about President Trump, and that's kind of the theme that's been running through here. We've been meeting so many people here today. The goodie bag table is about half emptied now, so there's a lot of people that are making their way through the conference here and through our media row. We have with us a new special guest. We have Sean Connolly. Sean is a retired from the U.S. military. His father was a constitutional scholar, and I'm surprised that I never ran into him, running in the Constitution circles that I ran in. And Sean is here visiting with me here today. Sean, how you doing?
Good, doing great today. Doing great.
So what are you doing here at America Fest?
Well, I retired from the Army a couple years ago, partially because of the mandates and partially because of just the way life, was. We were ready to get out, and I was building the border wall.
You were building the wall?
Yeah, I was the deputy commander for the border wall for the Corps of Engineers, and I was able to build the border wall. And then when that was shut down, when that was shut down, my wife and I were looking at things, and with the mandates coming out and some other things, decided it was time to retire after 26 years. So,
now, did you see when you were building the border wall? Did you see those pieces that were actually that they're trying to sell off?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I was responsible for the border wall all the way from California all the way to Texas border, and so we built 500 miles of it. But we also had a lot of materials to build additional 200 miles, as well as all the sensors and all the other things that were left in connexes to rot, and then were sold off or they're trying to sell off right now.
So you think they'll actually get the wall finished and built this time?
We'll see. I mean, it's still a matter of economics, because Congress is going to have to release a lot of that money.
When you're down there and you're building that wall, are there people that are sitting on the other side of the border looking at you like?
I'm sure they are. You
never saw any.
Well, no, I was up in here in Phoenix. I was running with the command center, and we were running the detail. So I was in charge of most of the contracts and operational side of things, of getting everybody out there and getting the personnel to get to where they needed to be.
So was President Trump kind of in whatever role he had? Was his role like as the head of Trump International, like supervising, checking in on the construction?
Pretty close. My bosses, the colonels I worked for and the generals I worked for, were basically on phone calls with the White House every few days, and so and Kushner was pretty much a facilitator between us and the White House on most of that operation. And it was every day we were getting a report of how far we got on miles, and we did 500 miles in 18 months, and it was pretty impressive.
And nobody thought that they could do 5 miles. They kept saying, you can't build that wall won't stand, it won't this, it won't that. Everything that they said about that wall was a lie.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting about the wall is it's definitely physical barriers are absolutely essential, and they work. Everybody has one at their house. They have a door.
I have one.
Exactly, and people have fences. People have security gates at everywhere around the White House. They work. The problem you also have to have somebody observe it. So that was one of the critical aspects of building a wall, is having those observable points where you have, whether it's cameras or sensors, where people can report, because any barrier can be breached in a matter of time if nobody's watching you. And that's
so. Talk about the piece that he was talking about, the piece that they put at the top. I mean, he said he didn't like the way it looked the other day. And I'm like, who cares what it looks like? But he was like, dude, you're not building Trump Tower. You're building a wall to keep the illegals out.
So you'll get a kick out of this story. Speaking of that, so while we were down there, there was a section of the wall. He didn't like the way it looked, and it was rusty and it looked like it was worn. But it was just the material, steel. And so what he did is he commissioned a section to be painted. And it was this black glossy paint, beautiful paint. It looked like a car polish on the outside. And so the president was down there, and he was meeting with my bosses about that, and he loved the paint. But then the cost came back, and they're like, "There's no way we could afford that to basically build 500 miles of car paint." But other than that, because those paints wouldn't stick. But it was this beautiful glossy thing. I've actually got one of the top caps that he didn't like because he cut them all off, filled it with concrete, and we took those top caps, and a lot of those we made placards to for those who were retiring and getting out.
I'm here with Sean Connolly, and Sean, a native of Rouge Baton, Red Stick, Louisiana, one of my favorite cities in the world. I'm a Louisianan. I'm an Acadian, as you are. Talk to our audience for a minute here about your dad. The fact that he was a constitutional scholar, argued in front of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, my dad was a constitutional lawyer. I was really blessed to grow up. Just kind of, as a kid, it was tough to have conversations with people because as a little kid I was talking about politics at a young age. But my father was a constitutional lawyer. He actually argued against abortion at the Supreme Court level in the 1970s and early 80s. Unfortunately, they didn't prevail during that time. But he worked for Ronald Reagan, and I used to have a picture of him and my mother and Nancy Reagan and Ronald sitting at a coffee table kicking their back because he ran ballot security for the state of Louisiana, which is very interesting because I was a young kid. I was helping with ballot security, didn't even know what it was. We just go through lists of dead people in New Orleans.
What is this ballot security you speak of?
Well, my dad he gave us money. He gave us like $2 for every kid or every name we'd find that was dead and still on the voter rolls in New Orleans. And it was amazing how many of those people were still voting after that in the city of New Orleans.
You know, it is said that John Bell Edwards would not have won either of his 2 elections without the city of New Orleans and the cheap machine.
Oh, absolutely.
The last votes come in, everybody knows it. Orleans Parish, if there's a Democrat running, then they know how to manufacture the votes. The amazing thing to me is that we tolerate a system that actually can produce that.
Yeah, that's the sad thing.
I think the state of Louisiana really has turned the corner, though. And I think that Louisiana is much more of a business-friendly. It's certainly the most friendly, the best tasting state in the entire union. But you left. You live here now.
No, I actually live in Rogers, Arkansas. We lived here when I was doing the border wall, and then we moved to Northwest Arkansas because my wife and I just wanted to raise our boys somewhere. I like to change the season. I love Louisiana, love LSU football, love the food down there. I got some great friends down there, but I just wanted to raise my boys somewhere where I could hike in the mountains in the fall and winter and enjoy the weather. So
why did you come to America Fest?
Well, the reason I came to America Fest is there's several people I know through the network I've built over here and through the military, and people like Tom Hallman and stuff. I've met through some of the things.
You work with Tom Hallman?
Yeah, I did. We did the briefings. We get on conference calls with him on a regular basis when we were doing the wall a few years ago. But one of the things with it is I've retired, but I'm also working, as a project manager and stuff. But I have the time and the knowledge to be able to maybe contribute to one of these volunteer committees or one of the other things for the border wall or for anti-terrorism. So I was just coming here to network and be able to build that opportunity. If they need me, I'm happy to do it. If not, I'm happy to hang out with my boys.
How do you want people to get a hold of you?
Well, you can look me up on sconley89 at Instagram is my handle. Really haven't done much social media, but I'm kind of out there if anybody wants to send me a message.
And we'll put it in the YouTube video here too. Sean, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you.
Man, it was so cool to meet you.
Yeah,
come back by. We'll hang out a little bit.
Sounds good. I'll have a coffee with you later.
We're going to get to meet MAGA Hall, Hulk MAGA.
Yes, I'll talk to him. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Folks, we're going to send it back to the studio here for about 5 minutes. Coming back with Hulk MAGA here. It's Mike Church live from America Fest. I want to thank Sean for coming by, and all of you that are watching out there. Remember, tap that subscribe button down there. Give us a thumbs up on the broadcast. I am here Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. right here on YouTube on the Crusade Radio Network app. Sorry, you need to scan that QR code right there. No, that's you. That's you. Scan that QR code right there. Get that app on your phone. And if you missed anybody from the stage, we are streaming the whole thing live on our app. We'll be right back here from the America Fest conference. Here's Mike Church here live here on the Crusade Radio Network.
During the pandemic, forcing people into home arrest. That's what that was.
Okay.
We were being forced into home arrest.
Great.
They used fear and shame at every turn to get people to turn over. Grievances. There's freedom. Here's the thing about emotional blackmail. Every time one of these sacrifices is made as an effective Country and this world with this message. Country and this world with this message. There's a biological fact that we can no longer ignore anymore. A species that is unable to reproduce naturally is on a path to extinction. This isn't an exaggeration. This is actually literally within the definition of extinction. In South Korea, the birth rate is 0.72 children per woman. In the UK, 1.5 children. In the United States, we hit a historic low of 1.6 births per woman. This is below the replacement level. That means a path towards extinction.